And joining me now to discuss this further is a journalist, never at a loss for words. You just heard him in the field report. Rick Reef, editor-at-large of the Orange County Business Journal. And also joining us is John Lansner, an icon with the Orange County Register. Let's talk California and the environment. Rick, first to you.
Okay, sure. Yes, we've done a great job of cleaning up the air. Although I think unleaded gasoline is probably the single biggest thing there. We still have the dirtiest air overall in the nation, but that's something that can't be avoided given our geography, the industry. Everyone drives a car, so on and so forth. The question isn't. The question is, at what cost? At what cost are we doing things that now increasingly appear to be diminishing returns? Okay, California has the highest gasoline prices, the highest electric rates. We've got rolling blackouts. We've got a water rationing. We've got this tens of billions being spent on a green bullet train that's going nowhere. And, so in the push for the environment, some of these things are really becoming counterproductive and destructive, and they most hurt poor people and working people, especially those folks who do so many of the jobs in LA, Orange County, and they're commuting from the Inland Empire, and the gas prices are just killing them.
John, your take.
Well, you have to be vigilant about the environment, the climate. It doesn't go away. The challenge is getting worse or getting steeper, and not everything that is tried to fix these problems is going to work. I mean, that's just the nature of being sort of, particularly in California, out on the edge. Certainly mistakes have been made. Certainly the cost is high. But I think, as Rick said, particularly let's just start about with Southern California. We live in this basin, which is probably not the logical place if you wanted to put a, industry and an economy. You would be, because the breeze off the Pacific keeps all the pollution inside our, legendary mountains. And those are not small hills. Those are world-class mountains. And the big challenge is, let's say we'll start with Southern California, is how to fix it. Northern California has its own problems, one of which is sort of a plus, which is the huge agricultural industry that we have in this state, which absorbs 80% of the water that we have. And talk about a tough debate, right? I mean, this is another example of tough questions that need to be solved with adults sitting in the room and saying, what's the right answer? I mean, me and I have a pretty water-friendly property these days. I ain't making a drop of difference in this water crisis we're undergoing now, compared to the fact that now everyone drinks almond milk, so we need 5 million square miles of almond trees. These are great questions. These are really tough questions. And unfortunately, it gets often down to either, oh my gosh, this mistake was made. We've had this big fight over a pipeline that doesn't exist that would take, dirty Canadian crude oil and ship it out of the country. Why don't we have meaningful discussions about, what's the right level of taxation? What's the right level of subsidy? How can we incent the private sector, which is always an important part of these challenges, to do, dare I say, the right thing? And one of the real costs, and it's often tough to talk about health or wealth, is that if we don't fix these things, people will get sick and or die from some of these issues.
I think though one of the issues, and I'm sure John and I will sooner or later get into this, is we basically have a one-party state. We have one party that happens to be the Democratic Party that controls everything. And I think with that, you develop a certain arrogance and an unwillingness to be flexible. And let's take the current gasoline crisis, because I want to get back to that, because that's having a huge impact on people. California pays we have the highest gas in the country. It's about $1.72 above the average. So we pay $1.72 more than the average state. Now, about 50 cents of that, a little over 50 cents of that is a tax, the second highest gas tax. And then the rest of it is because of the special formulation of fuel, again, to make our air as clean as possible, and also then other hidden taxes on the producers. So there's a wholesale tax that producers pay, and then of course then that goes into the price of the gasoline. So look, we're $1.72 higher. It's a crisis right now. We've got a state budget that's got this, 50 billion or whatever surplus in large measure because of Build Back Better, or not Build Back Better, but the stimulus bills and all that. And so California is supposedly rolling in dough. Why not say, let's eliminate the gas tax right now. Let's say, for now, for whatever, a year or whatever, let's eliminate it to give people a break. But they won't do it. Instead, they're doing this goofy rebate thing. And by the time the state gets done sending out the checks, who knows who's going to wind up with them. And it's strictly, again, a party that is so powerful, it can do what it wants and really doesn't even worry about public perception or the opposition or anything else.
Well, I think one reason there's one party in this state is that the critics for, I've been here 35 years, have said two things. One, the state's going bankrupt. We have so much money, it's laughable from both sides, for many issues. But and the second thing is that it's a sort of narrow-minded view that private sector is the answer to everything. And both of those, one is a prediction that has failed. The other one is not true. We all know that capitalism is a pretty damn good system, but it has its flaws, particularly when you get to big public policy issues that require some level of nudge or subsidy. So the reason there's only one party here is that the other party has failed.
Okay,
they have no candidate running, or at least serious candidate running for governor. If things were so bad and there were so many great ideas, I assume someone would raise their hand and say, hey, I want my voice heard, I will run. Okay. And that you can't put this is, and so the latest thing, the last couple of years I've heard from this losing team is, basically it's all the umpire's fault. And I umpire girls lacrosse. It's not the umpire's fault. That team has failed and needs to come up with solutions instead of criticisms. And I have yet to hear significant, solid ideas of how to fix this, other than I've heard ideas like we should dam every river in California so basically we could save water, somewhat impractical, and or would have other ramifications. And two, when we talk about this, quote, worthless bullet train, the area between Bakersfield and Sacramento would be like, I don't know, the 25th largest state or something like that. And if the state of Iowa was building a bullet train between two of its employment hubs or whatever, we wouldn't laugh at it like we do here. Yes, I know things were promised differently. Things change and dynamics change. And the second important thing is we often sort of hear from our critics that we ignore the central part of the state, and that's where a lot of people are economically challenged in the state. Well, let's view this as a public works program that's keeping construction workers employed and whatever, and view it as that and move on. And bullet trains work. Mass transit works. The problem is we need to get all sides to discuss how we can best use these public dollars and public right-of-ways and all the power of government in the most efficient manner. And that may mean that some of this stuff doesn't work and should be stopped. But
John, if they built a bullet train in Iowa, they would do it for half the price the
land would be cheaper and the labor would be cheaper.
And, granted, you lay out a plausible argument for why that we have a one-party state. But the point is, we have a one-party state. So how's the one party fixing it? Republicans do have an idea on the high price of gasoline. They're saying do away with the gas tax. Okay, and California isn't. But let's talk another thing about when you have one party and you're committed to the environment. Okay, so how about nuclear energy? The Diablo Canyon plant is slated for closing. We already closed San Onofre. If they close Diablo, Diablo is like, it's 9% of all the power in the state of California. It's 15% of the clean power, okay? And now I'm gratified to see that Governor Newsom has actually said he wants to reconsider closing Diablo Canyon. But I'm saying that, you know, in the, and again, you'll have to maybe explain to me the mind of an environmentalist, that they can be against nuclear, they can be against desalination, but they love windmills and they love solar panels. All right. And this idea on Diablo, I mean, again, this is a case where the governor is going to have to defy his own party and the coastal, or he's begging the Coastal Commission not to close it. So, you know, he's kind of up against his own, you know, his own institutions here to try to save Diablo.
No, I'm, you know, like I said, I mean, the one-party system isn't perfect, and certainly is a detriment many times. You know, the loyal opposition is often a worthy part of the system. Nuclear power is certainly something that was hot, and then we had some issues in some ugly situations, but those were 40 years ago. I will hope that technology in the nuclear world is much better, no different than every other bit of technology. And I also think that many of those things need to be rethought for various reasons. One, in the good old days, we were worried about the waste. Now with climate change being somewhat a real fear, we have to do that tough juggle of which is worse, finding a place to put the nuclear waste versus the positives that it can bring both to society and the climate. Those are great, you know, great discussions. No different than, you know, with the gas you know, the problem with gasoline, and let's not assume or forget that crude oil prices have gone through, you know, crude oil prices that were negative in the early days of the you know, pandemic economy are now, you know, back up near 80, 90, $100 a barrel. And that's a key factor too, is that either one, where are we going to drill? Great question, great debate. And more importantly, where are we going to put refineries? I mean, thankfully, the good people of Torrance in Southern California seem to have accepted all of them. But who else is going to have a refinery? You know, I mean, and my one of my pet peeves about it, of this debate always is think about Arizona, where they have a little bit cheaper gasoline, and every so often you have a friend on like Facebook will post a picture. Oh, I got this in Arizona. How many refineries are there in Arizona? Zero. How much oil production is there in Arizona? Zero. Why? They import it for either Texas or California, and maybe California and Texas should turn around to Arizona and say one way or another, maybe you should be paying some of these expenses for us to have two important things. One, the bad air. I don't think we are getting our full share, particularly the people of Torrance and the South Bay, of the cost of bad air. So people in Arizona can get cheaper gas. I mean, think about, yeah.
John, you make good points. You're making good points, and you're bringing up one of the right issues, which is what do we do about fossil fuels? But again, to get back to the obsession that California policymakers have, the issue now, we're probably going to see it on the ballot, is this push for single-use plastic. We've already banned the plastic bag. Now it's going to be single-use plastic, and we're going to see pictures of aquatic animals wrapped up in nets, and, you know, save the oceans, save the oceans. 80% of the plastic in the ocean comes from 10 rivers in Asia. 10 rivers in Asia, 80%. You know who isn't putting significant amounts of plastic in? California, the United States, Europe. They aren't doing it. And yet we're going to have in California this big campaign to ban single-use plastic, which drives up, again, cost to consumers, cost to business. It's crazy.